Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English After Hours. I'm Tim.
And I'm Steph. You know, Tim, I had the most interesting conversation yesterday at the coffee shop. I was sitting next to this couple who were planning their honeymoon, and they were debating between going to Paris or Tokyo.
Oh, that sounds like a fun but difficult decision. What were they considering?
The woman wanted Paris for the romantic atmosphere, museums, and French cuisine. The man was more interested in Tokyo for the technology, unique culture, and completely different experience from anything they'd ever seen.
Both sound amazing for different reasons. Did they reach a decision while you were there?
Well, I couldn't help but overhear when the man said, "Why don't we flip a coin?" And the woman immediately responded, "If you're willing to leave our honeymoon destination to chance, then I know which one my heart really wants."
Oh, no, that's not going to end well. Let me guess. She chose Paris?
Actually, she surprised him and said, Tokyo. She realized that they could visit romantic cities anytime, but experiencing such a different culture together could be a once-in-a-lifetime adventure.
What a great story. It made me think about how we choose travel destinations and what influences our decisions. Sometimes our first instinct isn't always what we truly want.
Exactly. And listening to them made me realize how much travel vocabulary and decision-making language we use when planning trips. It's actually quite complex when you think about it.
That's such a good observation. Travel planning involves so many different types of conversations, comparing options, expressing preferences, asking for information, making reservations.
And for people preparing for English exams like IELTS, travel and tourism topics come up frequently in both speaking and writing sections.
You're absolutely right. Plus, travel vocabulary is incredibly practical for anyone who wants to explore the world or even just navigate their own city as a tourist.
Speaking of which, this conversation is perfect timing for today's lesson.
It really is. Today we're talking about travel and tourism, vocabulary that's both essential for real-world adventures and important for English proficiency tests.
Before we explore travel vocabulary, please remember to subscribe to English After Hours, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up.
And remember, we upload new English lessons every single day. Make sure you don't miss tomorrow's episode.
Today, we're covering essential vocabulary for planning trips, describing destinations, discussing travel experiences, and making travel-related decisions.
This topic is especially valuable for IELTS students because travel questions appear regularly in speaking tests, and tourism vocabulary is useful for writing tasks about leisure and cultural topics.
Are you ready to learn English travel and tourism?
Let's get started. Today we're learning how to talk about different types of travel and destinations, plan trips and make reservations, describe travel experiences and cultural differences, and express preferences about tourism activities and accommodations.
That's right. Whether you're planning a vacation, describing past travel experiences, discussing cultural differences, or preparing for IELTS speaking questions about travel and leisure, this vocabulary is essential for effective communication.
You'll use this vocabulary when booking hotels and flights, asking for tourist information, describing places you visited, and explaining travel preferences and plans to others.
We'll learn vocabulary for different types of tourism, transportation and accommodation options, tourist attractions and activities, and how to express opinions about travel experiences and destinations.
Since I prefer domestic travel and exploring local attractions, while Steph enjoys international travel and cultural immersion, we can explore different approaches to tourism and adventure.
Let's start by talking about different types of travel and what motivates people to explore new places.
Steph, that honeymoon couple's decision-making process was fascinating. What do you think motivates people to choose certain travel destinations?
I think people travel for many different reasons. Some want relaxation and escape from daily stress. They might choose beach resorts or peaceful mountain retreats. Others seek adventure and excitement, so they prefer activities like hiking, skiing, or exploring cities.
What about cultural motivations for travel?
Many travelers want to experience different cultures, try new foods, learn about history, or practice foreign languages. These people often choose destinations very different from their home countries.
I think some people also travel to connect with family heritage or personal interests. For example, someone interested in art might plan trips around famous museums and galleries.
That's a great point. And then there are practical travelers who combine business with pleasure, or people who travel primarily for education, like students studying abroad.
What type of traveler would you say you are?
I'm definitely drawn to cultural experiences and trying to understand how people in different places live their daily lives. I prefer staying in local neighborhoods rather than tourist areas, shopping at markets instead of malls, and eating at family restaurants rather than international chains.
That sounds like authentic cultural immersion. What about you, Tim? What kind of travel appeals to you? I'm more of a nature and history traveler. I love visiting national parks, hiking trails, and historical sites. I'm also interested in educational travel, places where I can learn something new about science, history, or different ways of life.
That's practical thinking. Sometimes we overlook amazing destinations close to home while dreaming about faraway places.
Now let's learn essential vocabulary for different types of travel and tourism.
Types of tourism: leisure travel, business travel, adventure tourism, cultural tourism, ecotourism, medical tourism, educational travel, religious pilgrimage.
Travel purposes: vacation, holiday, sightseeing, backpacking, honeymoon, family reunion, conference, study abroad.
Destination types: beach resort, mountain retreat, historic city, modern metropolis, small town, countryside, tropical island, desert landscape.
Let's practice describing different types of travel experiences. Can you describe an ideal vacation for someone who loves adventure tourism?
An adventure tourism vacation might include activities like whitewater rafting, rock climbing, zip lining, or mountain biking. The destinations could be places like Costa Rica for rainforest adventures, New Zealand for extreme sports, or Nepal for mountain trekking.
What would appeal to adventure tourists about these activities?
Adventure tourists usually want physical challenges, adrenaline rushes, and the opportunity to push their personal limits. They often prefer active vacations over passive relaxation and enjoy being outdoors in natural environments.
What about cultural tourism? How would you describe that type of travel?
Cultural tourism focuses on learning about and experiencing different ways of life. This might include visiting museums, historical sites, traditional festivals, local markets, and art galleries.
What kinds of destinations attract cultural tourists? Cities with rich history like Rome, Paris, or Kyoto are popular, but cultural tourists might also visit rural areas to experience traditional lifestyles or attend cultural events like music festivals, religious ceremonies, or local celebrations.
The goal is usually education and understanding rather than just entertainment or relaxation.
Both adventure and cultural tourism sound much more engaging than just lying on a beach for a week.
Though some people find beach vacations very restorative and exactly what they need for relaxation.
Now let's learn vocabulary for travel planning and making reservations.
Travel planning: itinerary, destination, departure date, return date, duration, budget, travel insurance, visa requirements.
Making reservations: book a flight, reserve a hotel room, make a reservation, confirm booking, cancel reservation, check availability, payment method.
Travel documents: passport, visa, boarding pass, hotel confirmation, travel insurance, driver's license, student ID, vaccination certificate.
Let's practice planning a trip and making travel arrangements. This is very useful for IELTS speaking tasks about travel plans.
Let's imagine you're planning a 2-week vacation to Japan. How would you start the planning process?
First, I'd research the best time to visit Japan considering weather, crowds, and special events. I'd probably choose spring for cherry blossoms or autumn for beautiful colors, avoiding the hot, humid summer.
What about practical planning steps?
I'd need to check visa requirements for my nationality, book flights well in advance for better prices, and research accommodation options. For Japan, I might consider staying in traditional ryokans as well as modern hotels for different experiences.
How would you plan your itinerary for 2 weeks?
I'd probably divide the time between major cities like Tokyo and Kyoto, with maybe a few days in smaller towns or rural areas. I'd want to balance must-see tourist attractions with time for spontaneous exploration.
What about budgeting for an international trip like this?
Japan can be expensive, so I'd research costs for accommodation, food, transportation, and activities in advance. I'd probably set aside extra money for unexpected opportunities or souvenirs, and I'd definitely get travel insurance for an international trip.
Would you book everything in advance or leave some flexibility?
I'd book flights and major accommodation in advance, especially for popular destinations like Kyoto during cherry blossom season, but I'd leave some days unplanned for spontaneous discoveries and recommendations from locals.
That sounds like a well-balanced approach to travel planning. Now let's learn vocabulary for transportation and getting around while traveling.
Transportation options: airplane, train, bus, rental car, taxi, ride sharing, ferry, cruise ship, subway, walking.
Getting around. Public transportation, metro system, bus route, train schedule, traffic, directions, GPS navigation, map.
Travel logistics, check-in, boarding, departure gate, arrival terminal, baggage claim, customs, immigration, security checkpoint.
Let's practice discussing transportation choices for different travel situations. What factors do you consider when choosing transportation for a trip?
Cost is usually my first consideration, followed by time and convenience. For domestic trips, I often compare flying versus driving. Flying is faster but more expensive and less flexible.
What about when you arrive at your destination? How do you prefer to get around?
It depends on the location. In cities with good public transportation like New York or San Francisco, I prefer using subways and buses because parking is expensive and traffic is terrible. But in smaller towns or rural areas, a rental car provides much more freedom to explore at your own pace.
Do you have any preferences for international travel transportation? I love train travel in countries with excellent rail systems like Japan or many European countries. Trains often take you right into city centers, you can see the countryside, and you can move around during the journey.
What about local transportation in foreign countries where you don't speak the language?
I always research basic transportation phrases before traveling, and I use translation apps when necessary. Many cities now have transportation apps in multiple languages, which makes navigation much easier for tourists.
Technology has definitely made travel more accessible for people who don't speak local languages. Now let's learn vocabulary for accommodation and places to stay.
Accommodation types: hotel, motel, bed and breakfast, hostel, vacation rental, apartment, resort, guest house, camping.
Hotel amenities: swimming pool, fitness center, restaurant, room service, concierge, business center, spa, free Wi Fi, parking.
Room types: single room, double room, twin beds, king bed, suite, connecting rooms, non-smoking, accessible room.
Let's practice discussing accommodation preferences and making hotel reservations. This vocabulary is essential for IELTS travel topics.
When you travel, what type of accommodation do you prefer and why?
For budget-conscious travel, I often choose clean, simple hotels or bed and breakfasts rather than luxury resorts. I prefer places that are centrally located so I can walk to attractions and restaurants.
What about amenities are most important to you in accommodation?
Free Wi-Fi is essential for staying connected and researching daily activities. I also appreciate places that include breakfast because it saves money and time in the morning. A fitness center or nearby running paths are nice bonuses since I like to maintain my exercise routine while traveling.
What about you? What do you look for in accommodation? I'm interested in unique, locally owned places rather than international hotel chains. I might choose a traditional ryokan in Japan, a family-run pensione in Italy, or a historic bed and breakfast in a small town.
That sounds like accommodation becomes part of the cultural experience itself.
Exactly. I also prefer places where I can meet other travelers or interact with the local hosts who can provide insider recommendations about the area.
Do you ever use vacation rental platforms like Airbnb?
Sometimes, especially for longer stays or when traveling with groups, having a kitchen can be convenient and economical, and staying in residential neighborhoods gives you a more authentic local experience.
Now let's learn vocabulary for tourist attractions and sightseeing activities.
Tourist attractions. Museum, art gallery, historical site, monument, landmark, cathedral, palace, castle, national park.
Sightseeing activities: guided tour, self-guided tour, audio tour, walking tour, boat tour, helicopter tour, photography tour.
Cultural experiences, local festival, traditional performance, cooking class, language exchange, craft workshop, market tour, religious ceremony.
Let's practice describing tourist attractions and planning sightseeing activities. This is common in IELTS speaking questions about places and travel.
How do you typically choose which attractions to visit when you travel to a new place?
I usually research the most famous landmarks and historical sites first, then look for activities that match my personal interests. I read reviews from other travelers and check official tourism websites for practical information.
Do you prefer organized tours or independent exploration?
I like a combination. Guided tours are great for learning historical and cultural context, especially in places with complex histories. But I also enjoy having free time to wander and discover unexpected places.
What about you? How do you approach sightseeing and cultural activities? I'm particularly drawn to experiences where I can interact with local people, cooking classes, craft workshops, or community events. These activities teach you skills while providing cultural insights you can't get from museums alone.
That's a wonderful way to make travel more meaningful and personal.
I also try to balance famous tourist sites with lesser-known local favorites. Sometimes the best experiences come from places that aren't in guidebooks.
How do you find those hidden gems that locals recommend?
I ask accommodation hosts, chat with people in cafes or shops, and look for places where locals actually spend time rather than just tourist areas.
Now let's learn how to describe travel experiences and express opinions about destinations.
Describing experiences: memorable, disappointing, breathtaking, overrated, authentic, touristy, peaceful, crowded, fascinating, boring.
Expressing opinions. I was impressed by, I was surprised that, I found it interesting, I would recommend, I wouldn't suggest, it exceeded my expectations.
Making comparisons: more beautiful than, less crowded than, as expensive as, different from, similar to, unique compared to.
Let's practice describing travel experiences and giving recommendations. This type of discussion is very common in IELTS speaking tasks.
Can you describe a memorable travel experience you've had using some of the vocabulary we just learned?
A few years ago, I visited Yellowstone National Park and it completely exceeded my expectations. I was particularly impressed by the diversity of landscapes: geysers, hot springs, mountains, and wildlife all in one place.
What made it so memorable for you?
The authentic wilderness experience was breathtaking. Unlike many tourist destinations that feel commercialized, Yellowstone felt genuinely wild and natural. Seeing bison and elk in their natural habitat was fascinating and humbling. I would definitely recommend it to anyone who enjoys nature and outdoor activities, though I'd suggest visiting during shoulder seasons to avoid the summer crowds.
That sounds like an amazing experience. Can you describe a travel destination that didn't meet your expectations? I once visited a famous beach resort that was highly recommended online, but I found it disappointing and overly touristy. The beaches were beautiful, but the area felt artificial and commercialized rather than authentic.
What specifically made it feel inauthentic to you?
Everything was designed for tourists rather than reflecting local culture. The restaurant served generic international food, the shop sold mass-produced souvenirs, and there were very few opportunities to interact with local people or learn about their way of life.
It sounds like that place prioritized comfort over cultural authenticity.
Exactly. I learned that I prefer destinations where I can experience genuine local culture, even if the accommodations are less luxurious.
Now let's learn vocabulary for discussing travel challenges and practical considerations.
Travel challenges: language barrier, culture shock, jet lag, motion sickness, lost luggage, delayed flights, bad weather, overbooked hotels.
Travel solutions. Travel insurance, emergency contacts, backup plans, local assistance, translation apps, flexible itinerary, emergency fund.
Cultural considerations, local customs, dress codes, tipping practices, business hours, religious observances, cultural sensitivity, respectful behavior.
Let's practice discussing travel challenges and how to handle them. This is practical knowledge that IELTS examiners often ask about.
Have you ever experienced significant travel problems and how did you handle them?
I once had a flight delayed for 8 hours due to weather, which meant I missed my connecting flight and arrived at my destination a full day later than planned. It was frustrating, but it taught me valuable lessons about travel flexibility.
How did you manage that situation?
Fortunately, I had travel insurance, so the airline covered hotel and meal costs. I also learned to always pack essential items in carry-on luggage and to build buffer time into my itineraries for unexpected delays. The experience was actually educational. I had interesting conversations with other stranded passengers and discovered parts of the airport I never would have seen otherwise.
That's a great attitude. What advice would you give to someone traveling internationally for the first time?
Research basic cultural norms and customs before you go. Things like appropriate dress, greeting customs, and tipping practices. This shows respect for local culture and helps avoid embarrassing misunderstandings.
What about practical preparation for international travel?
Make copies of important documents like passports and visas and store them separately from originals. Learn a few basic phrases in the local language, even if most people speak English. And always have emergency contact information easily accessible.
Those are excellent practical tips for international travelers.
We learned essential vocabulary for discussing travel preferences, making trip arrangements, navigating transportation systems, choosing accommodations, and expressing opinions about destinations and experiences.
Remember, travel vocabulary is incredibly useful for IELTS speaking and writing tasks. Plus, it's practical knowledge for anyone who wants to explore the world or communicate effectively while traveling.
This vocabulary connects with our previous lessons too. Travel involves cultural understanding, business transactions, environmental awareness, and personal goals and experiences.
Practice tip. This week, try describing a past travel experience or planning an imaginary trip using today's travel vocabulary. Focus on expressing preferences and giving reasons for your choices.
For IELTS preparation, practice answering common travel questions like describe a place you would like to visit or compare traveling alone versus traveling with others.
You can also practice comparing different types of accommodation, transportation, or tourist activities using the comparison vocabulary we learned today.
Before we finish today, we have your homework assignment.
Tell us about your travel experiences or dream destinations in the comments. Use the vocabulary we learned today.
For example, you could write, I would love to visit New Zealand for adventure tourism. I'm particularly interested in hiking, mountain climbing, and experiencing Maori culture. I would prefer staying in eco-friendly accommodations.
Or, last summer, I took a cultural tourism trip to Morocco. I was fascinated by the traditional markets, historical architecture, and delicious local cuisine. The experience exceeded my expectations.
Challenge. This week, plan an imaginary trip to somewhere you've never been and describe your planning process using today's travel vocabulary.
Tomorrow, we'll explore food and dining in greater detail, advanced vocabulary for describing cuisines, dining experiences, and food culture from around the world.
Thank you so much for learning with us today. Please subscribe to English After Hours, like this video, and share it with your friends who are learning English.
Remember, we upload new lessons every day, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss tomorrow's episode.
Keep practicing, keep exploring, and we'll see you tomorrow for another essential English lesson.